I'm feeling low energy. I need to we need to pick this up here.
Get going. I got myself some Dr. Pepper caffeine.
Oh, I'm still drinking. Maybe that's part of the problem.
Well, I have some bourbon.
Some variety there.
Yeah,
I'm working on staying up, being active. Dr. Pepper here. Well, I also have like a full glass of bourbon.
Just like it's a nice, let's just say Charizard wasn't the only lush. Mask on, mask off, doesn't matter, I guess.
No, it doesn't. We're all the same underneath, so.
It's true.
All right, take, 7, whatever it is. Hey, welcome to the JRPG Pursuit Podcast, the podcast that is all about JRPGs, from playing them to collecting them, anything in between that you can imagine. I'm one of your hosts, and I am having a heck of a time getting through this introduction. My name's Branden.
Oh, my name's Abdallah.
And I'm Emily.
And boy, we had something of a weekend. I don't know if that's serves as a good excuse for my slovenly presentation today, but we Abdallah and I went out on the town. We were a couple of little lads about town on Saturday and visited. We brunched.
We brunched, yeah.
And then we took a lovely selfie. We had to get Emily involved in it, so we had her join us for the selfie, even though she's thousands of miles away. Virtually. So yeah. We'll have to post that on the posted somewhere. Yeah. So that was good. And then we, bar crawled. I felt like a kid.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like a kid, if that makes sense. The feelings in my body were not those of a kid. They were of a middle-aged man that was doing too much, eating and drinking too much, and paying for it. So, but the show must go on. I guess it's self-imposed. We're not under contract or anything.
No.
But we've decided that this is that we're going.
I blame no judgment Charizard. He had planned that.
He's got some explaining to do. He really kind of peer pressured me into it. He says no judgment, but you get the feeling that if you're not partying along, he might give you the side eye, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. I had to put him away, so he's gone for the season. So
okay, well I want to say that's good, because I need a little restraint over the coming weeks. So
I need some recovery time.
I need a little bit of time. I gotta claw my way back to becoming a decent human again. Anyway, I don't know when the last time we talked about pickups or like kind of what we're playing right now. So I thought maybe we would talk a little bit about that. Dalla, I know you were saying you picked some stuff up without me, apparently.
Yeah.
Rude. But what did you get?
I mean, we were gonna go together.
We were gonna go, but we forgot because we were drinking.
You were preoccupied with other things.
We got a little, forgetful in our old age. I'll use that as an excuse. But I ended up as part of my recovery phase today is like, let me go out and find some things to do and things like that. So I ended up going to a little bit of the usual places around me. There isn't much like in terms of game stores, but I was just like out there perusing. But did you know that the guide for Final Fantasy X HD is like $100?
No.
I didn't know this. Yeah. They were selling
Guides
for $100.
are expensive these days.
It's crazy.
Especially nice, like condition ones.
Yeah.
Is it like a hardback, or is it like
what is just a basic? It's like a typical guide, like a paperback guide that it was like they had it there behind the glass, and I was like, well, that's weird.
That's so strange. Like you'd think the utility of it is gone. There's no need for it. You know what I mean? It's not a useful thing anymore.
Make guides in paper copy as often anymore.
Because they need to be collector's pieces, right? Like they need to be.
Yeah.
The only game I could think of that has guides still printed in English is like Zelda games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
I can't think of any other JRPGs.
Maybe the Dark Souls. Maybe the Dark Souls series. I think they may still do them.
I think I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know in English, like I forgot the name of the maker of like a lot of those guides went under.
Brady Games was a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. So like we haven't gotten any.
Yeah. And I know there's some people who are very enthusiastic about collecting strategy guides. So it's probably.
I mean, I have a bunch, and that's why I have like all my Final Fantasy ones. But then I was like, I saw that there, and I was like, because I have the original like Final Fantasy X one. So I was just like, I was just shocked by the price of that.
And so you picked it up, right? That's what you're leading up to.
No.
You're just teasing us.
I was just wondering if you knew.
Commenting on the state of the market.
I didn't. Yeah, the market is. We'll probably get into that a little bit more later.
Yeah, that's like a preemptive discussion point to the market. But I mean, I picked up a couple, like a few things. Some of them not JRPG specific. But I did recently pre-order the Analog 3D. And in my excitement for that, they had an $8 copy of A Bug's Life on the N64.
Yeah.
Which is actually not a bad game. Like, I wouldn't say it's like the best game ever, but it's like a fun little platforming collectathon-ish type game that was popular in that era. So like, it's not perfect. It's not like Banjo-Kazooie or something like those, like, the top N64 platformers.
It's like a licensed game from that era, right? They're all decent for the most part.
The licensed games back then were actually pretty good.
Particularly when they were just like platformers. Like,
exactly.
Not that every platformer was good, but it was harder to make a really bad platformer than a lot of other games. So
yeah, like that era between like N64 and PS1, it was like platformers and then kart racers.
Kart racers
were really popular. They had like the Nicktoons kart racer. And
why hasn't there been a Pixar kart racer with all like the different Pixar characters?
That's true. I don't know.
I think Disney's tried one.
Did they?
They might have. I don't remember.
I think everyone compares it to Mario Kart, and they all fall short.
Yeah, it's hard to. I mean, Diddy Kong Racing though is one of my favorites.
Diddy Kong Racing is the rare one that I think it's some success on its own. Yeah.
Like, honestly, I like it more than like Mario Kart 64.
You bite your tongue. No, I'm just kidding.
I know. I'm sorry. Them fighting words, but I said them, and I'm going to live by them right now.
I'll take your word for it. I don't play those
She wasn't an N64 kid, so.
Yeah, I had way too many hours of N64 as a kid. It's just, that's what you did. And then another one I picked up is, it's going to kind of go into our next topic of like hoarding, like just collecting in general.
You got a confession right up front.
Yeah, I picked up
I kind of called him out earlier.
Yeah, Emily called me out on this one. I picked up Excite Bike for the NES. It was just like, it wasn't that, like, it was just a good price for it, and I couldn't remember if I owned it or not. I forgot to look at my shelf before getting on camera today, so yeah. I'll have to confirm post discussion whether I do have it.
It's a staple game, though. If you don't have it, you should probably have it.
Exactly. Like it was such a good.
And it came in the
price
sleeve,
like,
right? Which is nice to see.
100%. That's
you
what
got
sold
the
me.
Nice.
That's what sold me on it, because like no matter what, I'll use the sleeve for something. Even if it's not for this game specifically, I'll put it in like one of my other games that I like.
Heck yeah.
So yeah, I was pretty happy with grabbing that. Another game, kind of coming off of our not last episode, but the episode before that, when we were talking about overrated games. You know how I went on a tangent about Kingdom Hearts, so I picked up Kingdom Hearts. Number three.
Finally gonna dive in.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna dive in quite yet. I just never purchased it at the time because I knew I wasn't gonna play it right away, and so I was out, and it was like $3.99 for it, and I was like, you know what?
It's hard to say no.
Yeah, I was like, all right. It's like, I gotta get it. I'm like, there's no way I'm not. So yeah, I picked that up. And the last game I picked up was actually kind of like a random one, but it's something I've been meaning to pick up for a while, and I have not been able to, or not been able to find it. I was waiting to find it like physically somewhere, but that is Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Oh, Sharp FE.
Yeah,
that one's fun. I enjoyed it.
I never picked it up back in the day, but I've always had like this inkling of wanting to try it out and play it because it looked interesting.
Inklings are in Splatoon. I think you're confused. You're thinking of Splatoon.
Well, maybe. Yeah, that's probably a game I need to pick up. So.
But if you're interested in Japanese pop culture, which I think you are, I think you'll like it.
Yeah, that's what kind of like got me. Like, I was like, I've been teetering on like, I should have. I kind of kicked myself over not buying it when it initially came out, and like now it's so hard to find physical version of it.
It's getting more difficult. That's sure.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's easier to find in the PAL region, but the ESRB one is a little bit more difficult, and it's hard to find it discounted.
Yeah. Like even on the used market, it's a little high. More. It's like between $70, $80 on the used market. And I found this like locally for, what was it, like $30? And I was like,
oh, that's actually pretty good.
That's a good deal. Yeah.
That's a steal. So I was like, I don't know how they marked it at that price. But you know, it's a great game. So I'm hoping to play that at some point. It's going to be on the backlog, the millions of
the battle system's a lot of fun because it infuses the Fire Emblem and it's very flashy. It's very Persona kind of Fire Emblem, though it's an SMT collab.
Kind of like a J-poppy feel to it.
The songs are fun too. I like the songs.
Yeah, it looks like it's just a lot of fun. Like it might be just like a fun, like, you know, in between game. It's like, how long is it? Like, is it a long game? I'm not sure.
It's not long.
Okay, good.
Some of the dungeons are a little bit lackluster, but I feel like a lot of the kind of Persona-like games probably like that at that era. I don't know.
I have, this maybe is a subject for another day, but I have a lot of pent up frustration at dungeon design in this modern era. Every game with the smallest number of exceptions just has the most boring, repetitive dungeons. They don't put any thought into them. And it's like, I remember, random. I don't want to be the old guy, you know, like get off my port or get off my front lawn. Back in my day, the dungeons and games were so much better. I don't know what happened there.
My glass picked up the
the coaster.
The coaster.
Condensation.
Yeah.
Yep. I got to keep an eye on that. You know, my bad. But yeah, like those are the games I found. The interesting thing is that the person in front of me that was buying games had an interesting time buying $1,000 game.
What game?
He picked up
there's only a couple it could be.
He picked up Final Fight Boy, I think, or Final Fight Final Fight Guy for the SNES, which
is it a nice copy at least?
No, and that's the problem.
Is a lot.
Yeah, because like, all right, so like I looked it up because I was like, he was purchasing it, like they were talking about it, and I'm like just listening into this conversation because I'm interested in hearing about this situation.
Eavesdropped.
And totally eavesdropping this whole like discussion.
I would do
too. Because I was like, because he runs up to this thing and he's just like, all right, I want to buy this, and the guy's like, he's like, oh, like you saw the price, right? And he's like, yep. And he's like, okay. And so I looked it up, and it's like a $1,600 game if it's complete.
Sure.
And that's complete in box with the manual. This one did not come with the manual apparently, and the way that like the guy at the shop was describing the box itself was like it was in kind of like not great shape. Wasn't like completely destroyed, but it wasn't like particularly nice.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so like I feel like that's probably he like kind of like overpaid, in my opinion, probably, like if the box isn't that great.
Yeah. Well, is it so? Correct me if I'm wrong, but was Final Fight Guy, was that the one of those that was like a Blockbuster exclusive? Like you couldn't actually buy it?
Yeah, I think
rental only.
Rental only sort of deal.
It was that.
So like when games like that are over $1,000, like I kind of get it, because it's like, yeah, there was a super limited supply of these games. Like they're gonna fetch a high price even if they're not amazing. But
I hope it's at least fun.
It's Final Fight with the one character they cut out. It's like, I'm sure it's fine.
It's like a loose copy of it is about $400. So like that's where I'm like, if it's a bad case, like if it's a bad box, then like
that's a $600 bad box.
Yeah. So like, I don't know.
Sometimes when you put those plastic protectors on it, it looks better than it really is. So maybe that's what the guy was hoping.
But in your heart of hearts, you know you paid $1,000.
Yeah. I would just get a repo box at that point.
Yeah, but would you pay $1,000 for that though?
Not for $1,000, but
certainly not.
A loose copy and then a repo box.
I would buy a loose copy and then like a repo box in that case. But like, yeah, I mean, everybody has the things that they collect for and they love. So,
I think that's what makes collecting interesting. We all value different things. That's why everyone's collection looks a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, yeah, that's just a fun little tidbit I thought I'd throw in there because it just dawned on me. I'm like, oh yeah, I just witnessed that today. So it kind of flows into the next stages of our discussions later. But yeah, that's all I got for now. I mean, I'm still playing Metaphor Fantasio if I'm going to talk about like what I'm currently playing, and loving every minute of that. Just it's wonderful game. So no complaints there. I'm just running through it.
Yeah, I've been playing it too, and it's just been great. I've been distracting myself because with my new PC, I've been trying to try out the graphically intensive games and kind of see where I could push things. So I've been playing a little bit of Baldur's Gate 3 and some other games. My brother has this very extensive Steam library. It has nearly like 700 games in it now. And so we're doing the family kind of sharing access thing. So I just been toying with a lot of different games. And also playing Metaphor on my PS5. So that's what I've been up to, and trying to get my setup all orchestrated. I've just been buying a lot of little accessories because I don't know. I feel like once you kind of have a desk set up, you just notice little things that would improve it. And so I've just been kind of going through that stage of, okay, I think I have it all ordered now. So hopefully I don't need to order anything else.
You said you have one more thing coming?
I have one more thing coming the next couple of days, and then I'll have a full-on tour of my desk set up and talk about my PC. So I'm excited to share that.
Excited to see that.
Yeah, that is some interesting stories to go with it too. So hopefully it won't be too long of a video because I tend to ramble in their stories.
Okay. Well, let's see. I can talk about what I picked up first. This is really the only thing I picked up. We talked about it on the podcast a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago at this point. It's Radiant Historia. I'm not going to bury the lead. And it's a nice, like, crispy, I don't know if you can see it, you video viewers. The camera doesn't want to focus. A nice crispy seal on there. I wasn't necessarily looking for it sealed, but that's what they had. And I was like, I never see this game out in the wild. So I was like, well, you know.
That long box is so pretty.
It is so pretty.
It is very pretty.
I love that game. And I only have it digitally. And if I have to transfer from a 3DS system to another one, I'm worried that I'm going to lose it. And then when eShop, as eShop is closed, I think you can still re-download games, but like eventually you won't be able to.
There's other means, but yeah.
Yeah, I've
tried. You want to go down that rabbit hole?
I've tried 3DS emulators. I've never had a good experience with them. Maybe other people have, but it's just not.
Like outside of that,
there's one that's decent. I would say if you have the hardware.
Yeah.
My thing is like
it down, I think. Recently.
Oh yeah, they may have Nintendo going.
I think Nintendo
nuts on everybody.
They've been hard on it, yeah.
But you can hack your 3DS if
I think the hacking route makes more sense if you have an extra 3DS. So that's the only kind of tricky thing. If you're in the market for it, I do recommend looking to Japan because they have the cheaper consoles right now. And if you're gonna hack it anyway, you could just
unregion lock it.
Basically do that.
That's one of the ideas I've been having to get like a new 3DS.
I recommend it. I think the startup boot, like the loading speeds are a lot faster on the new 3DS compared to the other ones. And the 2DS is also nice. The new 2DS.
That's the one I really want. I want that new 2DS.
It's nice and light. The only thing is, I feel like the hinge isn't as sturdy. So when you're like holding it, you kind of do notice a little bit of shakiness.
Yeah.
But it depends on what model you get, of course.
Yeah. Because I don't really use the 3D part. Like,
it's always turned off.
I would always turn it on for a minute.
For the early games, I turn it on because I'm curious if it did. But then all the other like post 2015 games, I don't think even
barely
had any 3D on it.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
They realized they bet on the wrong horse that time. They were kind of in a habit of doing that back then.
The 3DS was still pretty successful. Like I think.
Well, no, I mean the technology. Like they should not have put that 3D technology in there.
Yeah.
It did. I think give them an edge over the Vita and some other systems at the time, though. And they did deliver with good games. I think that was the main thing. But
yeah, I think that their mistake was baking in this goofy 3D technology that made the system $250 American when it came out. And then they had to cut the price.
Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a whole mess.
I actually snuck in on the ambassador program.
Oh.
So Walmart, the week before they did the official price drop, they dropped the price themselves down to the new price. So I bought it at the reduced price, but I still got in the ambassador program. So I got all the free games. Cool. So, worked out for old Branden. But everybody else, they kind of got screwed. So,
well, I wanted a larger system because original 3DS size.
It's small.
It's pretty small.
That's what like, I have, and I'm like, I
don't
need
have tiny
bigger
hands, so
yeah. But anyway, so I picked up Radiant Storia. Really wanted to have that in the collection. Great game. And
are you gonna keep it sealed?
No. At some point, I'm gonna open it up.
The art book's nice. There's a Japanese art book I've been looking at, but it's really expensive on the aftermarket.
Yeah. But then let's see, what have I been playing? So I just finished up a review of the Life is Strange double exposure that went up, and I've been off and on playing Chained Echoes finally.
Oh yay!
Oh,
per your recommendation, Abdallah. I think it's great. Like it's the combat.
It's my favorite Fire Emblem so far.
No,
that I played.
Chained Echoes.
Oh, sorry, Chained Echoes. Why am I thinking?
Not Fire Emblem Echoes.
Oh gosh, why am I? Okay, that was a whole brain fart on my part.
I was like, yeah, I've never thought of it as a Fire Emblem, but it's good. It's good. It's like my couple of quibbles so far, and I'm only like 3 hours in, so I'm not. I don't have a full understanding of the game yet. I feel like sometimes the combat takes a little longer than I want it to. Because it's very technical. Like it's very like you want to, and the enemies have a lot of HP. And it's like I kind of want to move along, but that's fine. It's actually engaging combat, so that's good. And then some of the dialogue, I feel like I get the sense that maybe he's not a native English speaker. Is that the case?
I don't remember if he's native.
I don't know.
But European, I want to say, right?
Okay, but some of it reads a little bit like.
I don't know.
I know what he's saying there, but that's not how like a native English speaker would say that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just occasionally, it's not a widespread thing. But that's really my only issues with it. Otherwise, like it's beautiful. Like the music is gorgeous.
The music's
the
really
storyline
nice.
Is interesting. I'm still a little confused, overwhelmed by all the different countries and like all the political strife going on. But
it takes a moment for
I'll get into the groove eventually. But
a lot happens in the beginning, so like
it's a very loaded introduction for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, I started that up on PC as well.
Oh, did you?
Did you?
And I told you I've been toying or experimenting with a lot of games, but I thought the humor was really fun. Like a little bit of unexpected, just off the bat. I didn't get very far, but
the characters are all very fun. They have like very good personalities, I think, and they all kind of mesh well together. So like it's fun to keep seeing them interact as they come together, because you get like introduced to them in different contexts. Like they're all doing their own thing. So like it is very interesting once they all get together and they all have like can get very heated amongst each other or have like different kind of opinions towards different things, and it's just fun to kind of see that play out.
I like the characters themselves are really interesting. Like you've got the kind of sarcastic ninja thief and like basically William Shakespeare like is your other like it's pretty cool. But Chained Echoes is one that I would love to one day have in my collection if they would release it
one day.
And that's my segue into what we're talking about, which is collecting video games versus hoarding video games. How do we know the difference? What is the difference? And kind of just our thoughts on the collecting space as it exists today. So this episode was inspired by a comment from Dark Akuma 86, and I'll just summarize their comment here. Basically, they have a big collection of games, and they're seeing the aftermarket prices are going up like significantly for some of these games, and it's like, do I sell them, or does it kind of feel weird to sell them because you're kind of breaking the collection apart, and you don't like, maybe you're not even going to play these particular games anytime soon. You're not planning to sit down and play, like they specifically mentioned Dot Hack 1 through 4, which I also just finished that collection myself and have not played any of them. So it's like, does it make sense to hold on to them when they're worth so much if I'm not even going to play them imminently?
And there might even be remasters down the line.
There could be remasters
down the line.
Bandai Namco
doing that with some of their titles.
Right. So, And if that's the case, then does the value of those games go down, and then you just wait?
I think when a remaster is announced, they will go down.
So
at least slightly.
Yeah. So the question is manyfold, but I just kind of wanted to use that as we just kind of want to use that as the leaping off point to talk about collecting and hoarding. Like, does it feel like hoarding sometimes? How do you know you have a problem with collecting? I'm hoping you guys can tell me, give me a clear answer on that. And I don't know, like, I just want to kick it off to you guys to start us off. Like, maybe talk a little bit about your own personal collecting philosophy and how you've gone about it so far.
Do you want to start, Dalla? Since I think you might be the collection that we haven't heard so much on YouTube yet. So you should maybe share a little bit about your collecting philosophy.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. So, I mean, my collecting philosophy has always been like, a lot of my collection actually kind of just stems from just me growing up and purchasing games. So like a lot of it comes from just like everything that I've purchased up until now. And so like all my games that I've enjoyed over the years. But outside of that, you know, I think it was like early on, and especially in the YouTube space, when you was like watching a lot of the early YouTube collectors and things like that, you kind of got into this like almost frenzy of like interest of, oh, I got to go thrifting, and whatever PS2 or, you know, whatever game I get, even if it's something I'm not fully interested in, I'm going to buy it and put it on my shelf. And then, you know, maybe I'll sell it one day, or maybe it'll be worth something one day, or maybe whatever. I don't know. It's just like you had all these ideas.
It has a cool story behind it where you found it.
Exactly. Yeah. So like you had this like, it's like this whole perception of like you just buy things for the sake of buying things, and even if it's just like games that just don't even matter.
It was just cool finding games for cheap prices back then, I think.
Exactly.
This is what drove a lot of it.
Like I one example is like PS2 game of like Strawberry Shortcake. I'm like, I'm never gonna play that. I'm never gonna play that. But I picked it up. You never
know. Maybe you'll play it.
Yeah, like that's like I just like popped in my head now as like something being like, you know, like it's a game that like, I don't know, like
maybe you'll have a friend over at some point, and maybe the friend will want to play Strawberry Shortcake. You don't know. You don't know.
Branden,
or,
maybe I want to.
Branden, next time you come over,
somehow symbols in your game room, and they choose that one to they want to play.
Exactly. All right, then you know what? Because like that's the thing, is that's the mentality that you fall into as well.
You never know.
It's like you keep hyping yourself up into.
Oh no, we're doing it right now.
I know, exactly. Like we're so naturally prone to inclined to do those things that like, you know, like I'm like, oh, what, like I know I don't care about it right now, but like, what if I care about it later? Or what if someone else cares about it? It's like that, the idea of like, you know, like it's just like the whole like nature of collecting and retro space and all these things that we've been kind of like accustomed to like watching and consuming all these years have like kind of ingrained this mentality in our heads that like, yeah, like I want to get it, even if it's silly sometimes. I think like more lately I've been able to push myself away from doing things like that, where like I'll go into, let's say if I go into a thrift store and I see like a couple of games in there that, you know, nowadays they're not like $2 or $3, they're more like $6 to $10, even in thrift stores like Goodwill and stuff like that. And you see like games that you're like, oh, like this is like not an unusual game, but it's like a game that like I really don't care about. And I'm like, I'm more prone to push away from that now.
There's fewer factors though. Like you have limited shelf space.
It's true.
You have a better idea what type of games you like now than maybe when you started. And we've also noticed just, I think, a change in the marketplace when it comes to retro space. And with like remasters happening, maybe we don't need this game now. Maybe it'd be better just to buy it on a newer console where we don't have to worry about, you know, hooking up a CRT and playing on the original hardware, making sure it works. Like, I think there's just so many considerations nowadays that maybe 10 years ago we didn't think about all the way, or had the same sort of perception we have now.
Right.
Exactly. And I think it's also like just like getting older. And like
older and wiser, right?
Older and wiser in the sense of like, I mean, I wouldn't say wiser because I do just stupid things all the time, and I buy stupid things constantly.
We all make mistakes. I think that's how we become wiser.
So like, I'm not going to say how much wiser I am at this point, but it is clearly like a situation where like incremental. Yes. You know, don't sell ourselves short, I guess, in that part.
Exactly.
But like, I feel like if I'm going to buy something these days, it's going to be towards like a specific type of specific type of genre. Like, we love JRPGs. So like there's going to be most of the time I'm going to be collecting for JRPGs minus like, more of nostalgic kicks that come here and there whenever you do see them and stuff like that. So like, I'm less likely to outwardly look for things nowadays. I'm more more strategic about what I find and I purchase and I put on my shelves just because of just getting older, having less shelf space, not wanting to
also, I think modern gaming in the JRPG space has been great. We don't really need to look at retro right now because we've just been so overwhelmed with great recent titles and modern titles.
I'm trying to catch up with buying those. Like, I feel like I can't like, it's so like, there's so many good JRPGs coming out with this year, last year, this upcoming 2025 that like to buy them all.
Chronicles X.
I know Xenoblade Chronicles X.
With all the DLC.
I still want to get Romancing Saga 2 because I've heard good things about it.
Saga 2 for sure.
I heard great things.
I still haven't purchased Visions of Mana, and so like there's like games that I'm like on my list that I'm like,
it keeps
when
growing.
am I gonna buy them? Yeah, so I'm hoping that Black Friday will have some good deals on those kind of games. So crack out a bunch of them.
What I've been holding out on.
So especially for like just current gaming sphere, like if I can get a lot of those ones that I'm missing, that would be great. But yeah, I think like collecting wise, just to sum it all up from my perspective, it's just like I get, I purchase what I need. I've not got into too much selling. I know Branden, you have like recently. I've yet to sell off some of the things. I could probably do with some selling, like things that I just don't need anymore. And I think I just need to figure out the best way to go about that.
Do you have a local game store? You could just do trade-in credit.
I don't have anything. I don't think good. I can go near Branden. He has like more interesting like game stores.
There's a couple, a couple of like local shops. Yeah,
because I personally sell things individually online sometimes if I don't need my collection and it's something that I know I can move.
Yeah.
But I'm experienced at selling things online for other hobbies, so I know it's not something that's necessarily everyone wants to do.
Yeah, I've sold like
maybe Branden could talk about his experience of selling too later.
Yeah, that's true. I can always pick Branden's brain on that. Pick it all day long. But that's basically like, where I'm at with collecting right now. Still love it. I still like the idea of it. It's fun. You still get that thrill of things that you do find, or if you find a really good deal on something, you get that like it's like, you're jonesing for it. You want that, like you're chasing that high of finding that great deal on a game that you want, especially retro scene, because like the retro scene has been so like inflated. So that's where like, we've talked about it before, but like that's where shied away from retro as much because it's just how expensive it is to buy into a lot of that now. It's just hard to swallow that.
Yep.
Yeah. Swallow it and also just have access to it and the condition and all those multi-factors that we talked about in our first episode, actually.
Yeah.
I've not caught our first episode of this podcast. We talked all about why we recommend maybe collecting for the modern scene over the retro scene for many reasons.
That's right.
But yeah, I think Emily, we can hear from you.
For sure. So collecting is something I really like to talk about on my channel because I do feel like on the YouTube space, there's been, I think, a lot of negative kind of connotations toward collectors. And I really just tried to destigmatize what collecting means. I've had a number of people like tell me I'm not a real collector because I don't collect full sets before, which I find just odd because I think collecting is something very personal and a reflection of your interests and likes. And so not everyone's is going to, of course, be the same. And I think that's what makes it really exciting and interesting. In my last video, I talked about how I was kind of reshaping my shelves and how I really liked my shelves to kind of convey a story. And I really like the storytelling when it comes to how we display our games and how it's a reflection of like my interests at the time, as well as some bits of nostalgia from gaming from my childhood and my current interests. And I'm just really into right now curated collecting as a way so that I can just really get the best of the best on my shelf and just have a library of games I could go back to and feel pretty confident that they're ones that I've took the time to deliberately place on there. And yeah, this is, as you can tell, a topic I'm very passionate about, and I'm excited that we're doing this episode today to talk about it.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about like putting the best of the best on your shelf, wow. That's that
recovery phase still.
It's that recovery phase. Yeah, we'll get through it. Take 50. So as you're thinking about like what the best of the best looks like for you, like do you have like what are your criteria for determining that? Like obviously the games that you're nostalgic for, that's kind of fits the bill.
It has
already,
a special place for sure.
Yeah.
But for me, it's more of what games I think I really enjoy and want to hold on to after I play them. Yeah. So that's kind of what I mostly picture, and that always changes. There's some games I've let go of before even trying them because I kind of reevaluated, maybe I don't have time to play this, it never will, and I kind of have less interest in it now than maybe when I first initially bought it. Because I feel like as collectors we do grow, as you know, we kind of remain in this hobby over the years, and our tastes grow and change and evolve, and I think that's what makes it so organically fun.
Yeah, for sure.
If it's just a stagnant hobby where we just amass things all the time, I find that a little bit boring, personally.
Yeah, completely.
Not saying that anyone else who does that, it's perfectly fine. But just for me personally, I really like to kind of reflect on, you know, how I'm deliberately collecting things, and I'm having limited space. I've had people tell me like I should buy more shelves, and there shouldn't be any worry about, you know, expanding my collection things. But I think limiting your space really makes you a little bit more thoughtful what you put on there. And so I like kind of restricting myself in that way as well. And you might notice too behind me, I collect more than just games. Games are definitely what I mostly collect on my gaming shelves, but I also really enjoy other kind of gaming memorabilia like scale figures and art books and other things like that, just as a way to kind of celebrate games. Because I think it's really great to own, you know, functional games that you could actually pop in and play, but you could also find joy and other kind of aspects of collecting around games too.
Yeah. I love art books.
I feel the same way about it because it's like collecting the physical game is one thing, and that's having the ability to play the game whenever you want to. Yeah. But collecting
I think ownership is great.
Ownership is great. Collecting the other things around it, like the figures and art and whatever, it's like, yeah, like you're right. It's like celebrating the existence of the game. It's celebrating your experience having played it. You know, like
and the art of it too.
The art of the artistry behind
games are
it.
More than just, you know, for fun.
Yeah, exactly. That's my constant fight with most of the internet is like, oh, games are supposed to be fun. It's like I don't necessarily think that's true. Like games can do a lot of things to you, like emotionally, and you know,
complex things.
They're complex, and so celebrating the experience of the game with ephemera or whatever you want to call it outside of the game itself, I think is really cool. That's a big part of it for me too.
I totally understand why people maybe don't want to dip into collector's editions because they take up space, they're expensive, and maybe at the end of the day, you just want to collect the physical media, which I think is great too. Not everyone, again, collects the same way, which makes this hobby interesting.
Yeah, like it's like collector's edition, and even like the memorabilia around the game. Like once you've played the game, you have this emotional connection, especially depending on the game that you have, that like when you see those items or whatever it is on your shelf, whether it's an art piece or a figure or something like that, it kind of just sparks you a little like memory, and it kind of gives you a little bit of a smile almost of like
a little joy.
Yeah,
your little happy corner there.
Just brings you right back. Yeah, it brings you right back to
like it makes you think
that
about
experience.
Yeah, it helps you reflect on like, oh, like you know, it's not like something that you just like pick it up, you played it, and then you forgot about it and you leave it. Like it's just gone now.
It's a game that stuck with you.
Exactly.
You have an emotional connection to it.
Exactly. And that's why, like, as collectors, we usually, like, if we're going to collect outside of just the game itself, it's usually for games that we really care about, like games that really like impacted us, like, and that's where we kind of want to show that off in the collection because those like hold true to our personality or our feelings.
Yeah. But that said, we sometimes do, stumble into FOMO that we talked about earlier. Like when we talk about the limited print publishers, I feel like I have to buy these games before I play them. Otherwise, I won't have the physical media, which is something I do value. I do like ownership. And while I'm dipping into digital games right now on my PC, it's nice to have a physical copy that I know can't be taken away from me.
Yeah.
Like, with the limited print stuff, I've stopped. Like, I feel like I've basically fought off the FOMO for the most part. Like when I see a game that is like I'm kind of on the borderline about, but I'm like I don't want to spend $45 or $65 or whatever right now. I'm like, if I ever really want to play that game, if I really want to, like I can buy it. I can find somebody that's selling it, and I might be paying more, sure, but like. If I really want to play it, then I won't mind paying more. So that's kind of how I've been thinking about it.
Yeah, you're more deliberate in paying a little bit more of a premium price
for choosing
rather than
that
just buying a bunch of things, because the accumulation adds up more than probably
I ended
couple
up
things, right?
I ended up getting rid of more limited run games that I've bought because of the FOMO without ever having even opened them. Because I'm like, I don't actually want this, I just was like excited. I gotta get it, so. So I've made that a very, very.
I think that's a good conscious decision.
Yeah, a very big like shift in my collecting has been really focusing on that because that was a problem for quite a while.
For me, I'm trying to do that. Though I've been waiting on Video Games Plus for games I keep like kind of regretting not getting, and then hoping I get them. If I don't get them, then it's okay. Maybe later on I'll just pay up if I really want to own it. Like right now, I'm waiting for the Pentiment to come there.
Oh,
so I can buy it. Because that's one I kind of regret not getting physically. Which is not a JRPG, but I like narrative stories.
Yes.
And that one just had a really cool narrative.
Yeah. I need to find a balance of like, because sometimes I can be really good at like telling myself not to get something. And then just kind of like kicking myself in the shin afterwards, being like, I kind of really wanted that actually. So I should probably and then I'll probably do what Branden said he's going to do. Is like, I'm going to have to pay extra for the things that I do want, but at least it's not like unreasonable.
But if you're not buying every game that kind of catches your eye on limited run, you're actually saving money probably in the long run.
It's true.
Honestly,
it's true.
You probably are.
Yeah.
Because some of those limited run games, they don't resell easily. Like, they've just been sitting there for like no one wants them,
right?
For a reason,
because they're not great. They're not that great. They're just limited.
Overproduced games for sure.
Yeah,
when it comes to physical copies,
that's very true.
But another thing, when it comes to kind of letting go, like I don't think we need to collect all of our favorites. Like sometimes it's nice to pick and choose a few different favorites. Like I deliberately bought the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Collector's Edition at a premium price because that's one of my favorite games ever. But there's other games that I'm okay not owning because there's a possibility of maybe them coming back. Like Xenoblade Chronicles X is an example of this. A lot of people are telling me you should buy Wii U. You're going to regret not getting this in the collector's edition. But now it's coming to the Switch, and I'm glad I waited. And even if that didn't happen, there are other ways to play it.
It's true.
So I could have done it eventually. I just didn't necessarily need it on my shelf to feel like I was a complete collector,
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
And it's also cool if you really want, the game physically, you could always buy the Japanese version for usually a lot cheaper. Like maybe it doesn't have English on it, but if you really just want to have a physical kind of, commemorative piece of it, that's also an option that we have that I think not maybe a lot of people take advantage of nowadays.
Yeah. And I think especially if you're like those who are like, who didn't get, let's say for me, like for instance, like I did not get the Xenoblade 3 special edition. So I've been looking on eBay and like you can get the Japanese version without the game that just comes with all the
you
special.
You should talk to me. I know somewhere else it's really cheap.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let's talk afterwards.
And then the nice thing with that is it comes with English.
Oh, all right. Well, let's talk afterwards because
we'll talk. I'll tell you before this airs. But one of my favorite places to import Japanese games is Surugaya, and they always have on their English part of their website like free shipping offers. And so they had Xenoblade Chronicles 3 special edition for like under $70.
Wow!
Everything, the box.
I will buy that now.
So I will show you what it is.
I will go there right now in the middle of this podcast.
Honestly, and it's a beautiful box. I know PAL regions, they got gypped because it wasn't the holographic cover or something.
Yeah.
But I think Japan has a nice, pretty holographic cover.
It looks really nice. I like the Japanese cover is actually quite nice.
It's very nice. The steelbook's beautiful. The art book's a little lacking, but if you buy the artworks book that they came out with over the summer, that's another nice way to have the art.
Exactly.
In addition to that. Yeah. And the soundtrack, of course. Like they don't have the sample CD, which is fine because I don't know. I don't like collector's editions that give you the sample soundtrack. Like it's okay, but I'd rather have the whole thing.
Yeah, I want it all.
The same thing with figures. Like figures are not worth it in collector's editions often. No. Like maybe if it's an IP that doesn't get scale figures, like some of the like Sony, PlayStation kind of exclusives, I can understand it, but they choose like the cheapest manufacturer to get that done. Like they're not quality usually.
They're not usually like. I remember the ones they made for Xenosaga. I would rather pay up for a nice scale
figure, though. I've developed a taste for scale figures, so maybe I'm not the best one to give this recommendation to those interested in
highly refined. Highly refined. Well, I'll tell you my philosophy. I'm going to try to be quick because I know we're pushing time and we want to get to talking about.
No, you take your time. It'll be a nice long episode.
Yeah. We've got a lot to talk.
Yeah, and I've talked before, probably even here about it a little bit. But I started collecting maybe 7 years ago at this point, and it was just to re-buy the games from my childhood, and that awakened something in me. Like, I discovered a new mental illness so late in life. Fun. So then I wanted to get everything, and that was the first mistake I made, right? Is I was trying to collect just everything because, like, I think you mentioned, Dalla, like watching YouTubers back in the day, the game chasers, the retro Ricks, the whoever's, they are just they're getting whole sets of games. They're just finding great deals and doing all this stuff. And that's exciting and that's fun. Yeah, so I wanted to do that. Yeah. So I did that for a while and bought a whole bunch of games. And I knew that I wanted JRPGs was my thing, right? Horror games. So I was focusing on that, but I was still buying a lot of stuff. And eventually, just within the past few years, doing YouTube helped me focus it in. But just over the past few years, it was really more like, okay, I want to have a library of games. I don't want to just have a mountain of games that I'm never going to play. I want to have a library of games I'm never going to play. That's more exciting to me. No,
more thoughtful, curated.
A curated library of the specific types of games that I like. So even if I haven't played it, I know that it's the sort of game I would probably like.
Yeah, so, and whenever we have the drought of JRPGs again, you'll dip right into it.
I can pull them off the shelf and I can
exactly.
Go to town. With that in mind, I recently was like, okay, I need to start, unloading some of these games that I've just been sitting on. There's a difference between a game I'm nostalgic for that I'm not likely to play all that often that I had as a kid, and a game that's like adjacent to that. So like I had a bunch of Mario games that I wasn't nostalgic for that were on later systems. And I'm like, I don't need these, I'm not going to play them. I'm not nostalgic for them. So like, why do I have them? Because they're Mario. That's not a great reason in my mind. Like that's not what I want to collect for. So I sold a big load of games not too long ago. And I'm looking to maybe do it a little bit more, like piecemeal, find some of the heavier hitters.
I think an annual like purge or just reevaluation is healthy for any collector.
Here we call it the culling. We do the culling. We're going to do the annual culling.
Does it spark you joy?
Yeah.
Exactly. Marie Kondo.
Yeah, Marie Kondo. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'll have to go through the shelves and do I want Little Nightmares 2. Well, I might keep that one. I like horror. I just looked at the first game and
games,
it was like, no, that's one I want to keep.
Those are cool. That's what you found when you if you go, like, I think I did a video on this where I took all the games off my shelves and then one by one decided, do I want to put this back on the shelf or put it in a maybe pile or my sell pile? And I feel like deliberately doing that really, I think, helps motivate you to be a bit more deliberate with what you put back on your shelf rather than just scanning titles, because it's easy to scan titles, be like, okay, these are all good. We're gravy here. But once you actually physically hold it, like, this is taking up, space, valuable space or real estate.
Exactly.
Yep. So we will continue to trim it down over the years as we inevitably add to it as well.
Yeah, grow and expand. It's organic.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I guess the broader question that we're kind of getting at, as with our descriptions of our own philosophies, is what's the like, when does it become hoarding? What is our thoughts on how would somebody hoard video games? What does that look like? And
is it gatekeeping other people?
Are you just gatekeeping people by saying, well, you're not a collector unless you do the X, Y, or Z, or, oh, you're not even, you're just hoarding. You're not a collector at all. You have games you don't play.
You're just showing off.
You're just showing off. You are mean on the internet.
Yes.
So it's like a therapy session right now.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I have a hard, in the past, I've had a hard time discussing the whys of all this. Like, why do I have these games? If I'm being realistic, I mean, there's hundreds of them and they all take 40 plus hours to beat. I don't have that, don't have that much time, and there's new games coming out. Like, I'm not going to play all these. I'm sure I'm not.
Does that matter?
But does it matter? Like, do I like having access to them, and is that good enough? I don't know. Like, is that a good enough reason to keep them? I don't know.
Well, I feel like as adults, we value different things, and there's some people who enjoy material objects for different reasons, not just to show off or, to display on a shelf just to have it there to fill up space. I think, we talked about physical media a lot when we're going to be like losing, physical discs where we'll help. You don't have to rely on the internet, to actually play the games. And so that's something that I've become a bit more attuned to the past couple of years. And do you feel like now is the time to kind of buy games before it starts to go more towards the digital era, which is something that I've been trying to kind of have like a safety net in a way, so that I could still own games, have them displayed, and have physical access to it, where I could kind of pick and choose what I want to do with it, rather than have it very more limited, options when it comes to the digital storefronts. But
I know
there's a lot of judgment though when it comes to why do you choose games as what you collect to put in your home and your space.
I mean, and it's, even if it's judgy, it's not an unfair question. Why do we choose games?
No, I think, I think self-reflection is key for any collector.
Yeah.
And all it does, I think, is kind of, if you're able to answer those questions, it just reinstills like you're being deliberate about something and you're kind of being passionate about something, which I think, what's the point of living if you're not passionate about things,
Right. For me, it's games are the most, like, other than the people in my life, like, the games are like the biggest thing in my life. Like, I've been playing games for 38 years now. They've been a central part of my entertainment and my growth as a person. Like, I've had games that literally have changed my life in dramatic ways. So,
I think it's as valid as any sort of form. Like, people have libraries of books.
Sure.
Libraries of movies. They're usually not frowned upon. Sometimes they are.
Yep.
I feel like, because like
people who don't understand, but
like for a lot of people who are like not in the gaming space, like they don't have an idea of like gaming as like a form of art, or because like it's the same thing as like, when you're playing a JRPG or playing like, these narrative games, it's basically just living through a novel or a book or something like that. So like it's the same
there's
concept.
no voice acting, you're reading.
Yeah,
Sure.
like a lot
Someone's
of it's
reading. Like
a lot
I
of it's
credit
reading.
playing Pokemon to starting my love for reading.
Exactly. Like a lot of people who are into games, especially the like, you know, JRPG space or RPGs in general, narrative driven games, tend to kind of find like they're also into reading, or they're into like they're adjacent to these types of things. And so like you tend to collect movies and or books on top of that. And so like it kind of just bleeds into these different areas. And so it's not just like, you know, it's not just your passion for gaming, it's your passion for narratives, your passion for like artwork that tells a story that consumes you for a moment of time and takes you away from reality to jump into a world that like can be you know, drastically different or similar in different ways. So like it's really fun look of like, I mean, collecting is just, it's just a personal thing. And so like at the end of the day,
you don't have to be a collector to enjoy games.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
We just choose to do it because we find it satisfying and for some reason or another.
Yeah. And you don't have to call yourself a collector.
Nothing wrong with that.
Like,
no, yeah. I mean, whatever terminology works for you and describes how you feel about the games you buy, like that's great. Whatever, as long as you're not, you know, casting judgment or aspersions on other people for their, you know, their own unique take on it. I don't have a problem with it, you know?
No.
Exactly. And in the same vein as like, you know, what the comment tried to tell us, like, you know, trying to talk to us about is like, you know, should you feel like bad about letting go or picking and choosing what you like? It's like, no, at the end of the day, it's like you're living with your own collection, your media, your artwork, like whatever you're happy with, you keep.
And if you decide to sell it, it's your choice.
Yeah. And like,
you know,
just do what makes you happy in that moment.
It's okay.
And the thing to keep in mind too is that you sell a game, it doesn't mean it's gone forever. You could probably at some point rebuy it again, right? Yeah. Like it's that's, you know, now some games are going to be very expensive and you're going to have to really want it if you want to reacquire it, but it's not impossible. You could. So it's not like you're not losing something profound when you sell part of your collection. You are saying goodbye to it for a time. Maybe you'll bring it back. Maybe not. Maybe you'll realize, oh, I'm just as happy not having that in my collection as I was having it. And that's fine.
Yeah. Whenever I do purge, I feel like a weight's been lifted off my shoulder because when I have too much clutter, it's honestly really kind of oppressing.
It's anxiety inducing.
It is.
Super. It is. So it's something I try not to fall into. And I know some people tell you never sell a game because, you know, they'll be worth X amount in future, which I've talked about this extensively on my channel. Like, I don't think you should collect for the purpose of investment. Like, if you like to invest for fun, that's okay. I just recommend have it less than 5% of your investment portfolio.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think, a very tricky route to walk down if that is your main purpose for collecting is for investment.
It's so volatile. It's so like if you look at even other collecting markets like art, like they're volatile too, but I feel like video games are at a completely other level.
Anything with nostalgia is volatile. That's what basically video games is right now. We have different nostalgic waves, and people, when they acquire money, then they try to buy back their nostalgia. And so it's just different systems are going to be kind of probably worthless in the future, in my opinion.
Yeah. And it's like,
that's just how the market works.
It's also like, it's not an old enough medium that has stood the state of time. Like,
it's not historical.
Exactly.
Artifact.
Like if you look at like other collection items, like, you know, baseball cards or, you know, things like that, where like you can say like, you're always going to look at like, but like you're always going to see like there's the old greats that they're always going to be worth something.
Okay.
And so
it's not like ancient coins or something like that, like actual parts of history. I don't think we're at that point yet. And I don't think in our lifetimes, video games are going to be that, to be honest.
No.
And also, if you are interested in investing, like, you need compound interest on your side. And there's so many different tax issues when it comes to reselling things. And it's hard to resell games, to be honest. Like, even if you have a very expensive game, there's only a very finite number of buyers who would pay that price. So that's why people, you know, resort to selling to other, you know, collectors or resellers to help them, because they themselves individually, you know, have a very difficult time selling that. Or even like eBay as a platform, they take whatever percentage they take, and you have a risk of, you know, selling online. Like there's so many complications that I think a lot of people don't consider if they are just thinking of collecting for an investment opportunity.
And I feel like it's like kind of late to the game to start collecting for investment periods like right now. Like if you were if you got in like back when like Funkoland was purging all their stuff,
right?
And you were getting games for pennies, like, and you were just hoarding those games, and like then maybe like I don't know, like at the time people that weren't even thinking about it really, like it wasn't even a thought process, but like that's like what would make like we're not at that stage anymore where like it's already an inflated market, so like everything is just a risk of like losing value. And like a lot of the games, at least older JRPGs at this point, they've hit like that kind of like plateau of being very expensive, and so like it's not going to go up terribly much more. It might go down a little bit, but like it's going to stay around like, so like you're going to, no matter what you buy it for, you're not going to make much more off of it. So it's not really truly an investment at this point, unless you find it for like 20
and
bucks
you
from
hear
a
about the
garage
winners
sale.
You hear about the amazing games that have like 10x's, but how about all the losers you invested in?
Does that exactly,
where they kind of weigh in the scale there?
Right. Yeah, it's the idea of buying a game and holding on to it with the expectation that it's going to rise. I mean, yeah, like you said, maybe one time out of 100 you'll get a big win off of something, but does that make up for 99 the ones that
you didn't
that did not?
That's just a lost opportunity. You could have invested that in S&P 500, get 10% gain annually on average. Like that would, I think, give you a lot more money. And then if you can invest that also in like tax advantage accounts.
We're changing the podcast now. Sense. We're going to be a retirement
financial
sponsored by Fidelity. No, we're not. We're not. Just to be clear, legally, we are not sponsored by Fidelity.
No, we're not.
I might use them, but
yeah, I use them for some things, but that's not an official endorsement.
No, we were not endorsing anybody.
Anyway, but if you do want to sell games, for cash, like the best time to sell games is probably now, and then invest that money that you've gained into like an investment account, if that's really how you want to play it, because holding on to things is just a lost opportunity, I think, when it comes to compound interest.
I think investing in games as a hobby, as something that you're not actually looking to build a portfolio and build wealth with, is totally fine. Like there can be it can be fun to flip a game. I've had the experience of finding a pretty rare game at a garage sale for cheap and selling it for, like I bought a whole box of Sega Saturn games from a guy once who's just like, I don't know, $1 each. I'm like, okay, I don't even know how much these are worth, but like I know they got to be more than $1. So I had a whole bunch. Like I was able to sell. Like that was a thrilling, fun thing.
Oh yeah.
I'm not.
Short-term flipping, I think, is more lucrative than long-term holding.
I'm not basing my my retirement, which I don't think I'll probably get to do anyway. But like I'm not basing that on video games, and I don't think anyone should. I think that's kind of where we're all in agreement. Is probably don't want to do that.
I feel like with video games, you kind of like have to play that short-term flip, because you see a lot of it now. Like it's a lot of like it's about like retro like game stores and things like that. Like just basically building up like just selling your wares. You're not like investing over time and stuff like that. So it's not a viable like retirement philosophy to look into gaming. Like at the end of the day, Emily said it right. Like just buy what you love. And if it goes up in price, it is what it is. But like,
and you can make your decision if you want to sell it. If you're hard on cash, then why not? But I don't think you should buy it for the purpose of it being some sort of investment or a way to hold cash.
It's like when I bought Xenosaga 3 when it first came out, I didn't buy it because I was like, this is gonna be an expensive game later on. It's gonna be a $300 game. Like, no, I love Xenosaga. So like,
I want to play this game.
And like, am I going to sell it because it's $300? No, because I love the game. Like,
right, you're going to keep it, but
Yeah. I think emotional attachment is sometimes more, rewarding to have than financial opportunity.
Exactly.
In some aspects.
My collecting is more emotional. Yeah.
Same.
Well, and that kind of leads me into what I wanted to talk about as far as the argument about hoarding goes. I know a lot of people, because of the media, television, whatever, they throw the word hoarding around to just mean having a lot of stuff that you're not actively using. Yes. But like the thing to keep in mind is like hoarding is an actual thing. Like it's an actual mental condition.
Yes.
Like there's some of that in our extended family. And so the key, I think the key thing to keep in mind if you are worried that you are hoarding video games is if having them doesn't bring you joy, then you might be hoarding. Like if you look around at just the mountains of games you have and you don't feel happy having them, but you just feel like you need to have them, and it's an anxiety thing, that might be hoarding. You know what I mean? It's because a collection.
If you can't tell me much about the title that you have there, that might be also a signal.
Yeah, your collection, if you're a collector, is something that you maintain deliberately because it brings you some amount of joy, brings you some amount of happiness.
It's kind of why I was teasing Dalla earlier. He mentioned he wasn't sure he owned the game already. I was like, that's one sign.
But I mean, but like when people are hoarding, like they don't.
That's a whole different ballpark.
They don't love it.
It's true.
They're not happy. No. You know, they're not happy with all that stuff. So
there's a lot of void that they just trying to fill usually. And I think there is a spectrum when it comes to unhealthy collecting and hoarding. Like you can still be an unhealthy collector, but not be a hoarder.
Sure.
If you're trying to buy things and you keep extending that goalpost of, you know, what you want your collection to be, and at the end of it, you're expecting some sort of huge reward. Like I'm going to, you know, be so happy when that is achieved.
Yeah, I will be happy.
A lot of times it's going to be very empty.
If your goal, if the goal you have in that's a very good point. If your goal at the end of your collecting journey is that's when I'm going to be happy, you are missing the point. You're not collecting right. Like because
you'll never be happy.
The process should be the fun part, honestly.
Yes. When you're putting together the library, that's what brings joy.
For sure. And you see a lot of people criticize YouTubers who collect things and then decide to sell it off once they reach their goal because it's no longer fun. They enjoyed the thrill of the hunt, which I think there's something wrong with that. And that's what they prioritize. It's not necessarily the end goal collection. Like some of us may have as, you know, our priority, but I don't know. It's, again, I think there's a spectrum of collections out there. You have the healthy collecting and the people who just accumulate games without deliberately collecting because they just buy their games physically. It's maybe the cheapest way for them to get games, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But when you kind of venture more into I don't want to call this an addiction because addiction is also, I think, something has a very it's thrown around a lot, and I think people kind of overstate that they're addicted to buying games or whatever, because addiction is a real thing.
Right,
it is.
But you can have an unhealthy obsession when it comes to trying to seek out something to fill a void.
Yes,
yeah,
which I think is important to
much like addiction and other things like hoarding and things like that. Like if you're doing something and it's causing. And it's becoming
more
unhealthy. Pain. Yeah, if it's becoming
you're not prioritizing things you should, like financial responsibilities.
Yeah, exactly. Like if it's affecting your life and those around you, then that means there is a problem there. So like, as long as like your collecting is healthy, it's not causing you any stress. It's not creating any strain with those around you, your loved ones, or anything like that you might be living with, or whatever it is that you deal with. Like then everything's fair game as long as you're happy and you're doing what you love. But like the second it starts to,
which is the sad reality, but
the second it starts to affect those other areas, then you have to take like reevaluate like why you're doing what you're doing, and is it worth it, or do you need to downscale? Do you need to think about new ways of doing things? Like that's like basically where we're coming from here. Is that like you just gotta love what you do. Like
I think that
you love your collection.
And be in a stable place.
I think that sums it up pretty nicely, right? If you are enjoying it and you are taking care of the things that need to be taken care of, then you're good. You know, enjoy your collecting. If you want to sell some things occasionally, that's totally fine. You can always get them again. Just remember, you can always get them again. It's okay.
Physical things like
it's just
and
stuff.
You're not selling out like you're not selling out. A filthy reseller by doing that.
No, you're fine. You're good. It's okay.
I think it's totally healthy to do this.
Collections grow and shrink and they flow and it's fine. Exactly. It's great. So
exactly.
It makes it interesting. If it's just only accumulating, I find that a little bit more boring.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah. Well, that's. I think we did a pretty thorough job of covering everything we wanted to cover.
If we didn't, though, let us know down in the comments below or shoot us an email, and we'll love to expand on this topic a bit more.
Yeah,
we all are collectors, and we like talking about collecting.
Yeah.
If you need to email us, just shoot us over at jrpgpursuit@gmail.com. We love getting emails from you all, and comments, of course, as well. And why don't we talk about real quick where we are on the internet? Dalla, where are you?
You can find me on X and Bluesky at Dalla998.
And you can find me over at Orbalology, both on YouTube and other social media places.
I am Just the Gems on YouTube and Bluesky, and on Twitter and Instagram, I'm _Just the Gems. So thank you once again for tuning in to listen to us talk about collecting. We had a great time. We hope that you had a similarly good time listening. And I guess until our next chat.
Yeah, we'll see you next
week. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Take care.